Okay, Raw's in a mess right now, isn't it? Raw's in a terrible, terrible mess. Horribly booked wrestling show, difficult to watch at times, I think. Me and Bobby tell you this in every Raw review we do, and I think for the most part you guys agree with us, because I was reading the comments in Bobby's last Raw review, and they were mainly you guys saying how much you disliked Raw, what you thought Raw was doing wrong, what you thought Raw could do to become a better show, and all that sort of stuff. So I thought I'd tell you my views on this, and what I decided to do is to fantasy book Raw for the next 2 months, i.e. between the Bash and SummerSlam, including those two pay-per-views. This is what I would personally do. This is my personal booking. It's not perfect. I just literally spent 30 minutes jotting it down. It's not watertight or anything. It's, these are just, there are lots of loose ends, but these are just workable ideas, I think, which can be turned into really good storylines. I've not done anything outrageous either. You all know, if I were to actually book Raw, I would just release Triple H, release DiBiase, release Rhodes, etc., etc. I've not done any of that. Instead, I've done things which I think the Raw writers are trying to do. For example, push Legacy, but are failing to do. That's what I've gone for here. So, yeah, let's get started. Okay, we start off at the Bash. There are 3 Raw matches at the Bash. Legacy versus the Colones for the tag titles, Miz versus Cena, and Orton versus Triple H in 3 stages of boredom match. Okay, first up, Legacy versus the Colones. I don't want this to happen, for the record, but I'd have Legacy go over here. I think it makes most sense with what Raw is trying to do, trying to make Legacy look like a really strong faction, to actually make Legacy look good for once rather than just total idiots. So yeah, give them some gold, make them look more powerful, make them look like they've actually achieved something during their WWE careers. For the record, I think the Clones are ultra talented, but they're not very over anyway, so I don't expect it to be that big a loss for them to lose the belts. So yes, I'd have Legacy go over. What I'd do is I'd have an even match. I'd have the Colones start to look like they're about to win, then I'd have Legacy cheat in some way, pull the tights, put their foot on the ropes, some kind of old school heel tactic for the victory. Miz Cena. We all know Miz isn't going to win this. So the question is whether we want Miz to get squashed or if we want him to look really good. I, of course, am choosing the latter. I want this to be the best match of the Miz's career, really elevate him to a status he's never been to before, make it a 20-minute match, make him look good, but have Cena win. This is how I book it. I'd have Cena really dominate at the start, make it look like the Miz could even get squashed here horribly, like we all fear he might. But then I'd have the Miz viciously work a body part on Cena, the leg, the arm, something like that. Then I'd have a flurry of action towards the end. I'd have Miz hit that DDT thing of his, but because of the action of the match, be slow to cover and only get a 2 count, a long 2 count. Then I'd have Cena hit the Attitude Adjustment, but because of the action of the match, take a long time to cover, and Miz gets foot on the ropes. Then I'd have Cena hit the Attitude Adjustment again and get the clean victory. Fair enough. Triple H Orton, we all know they're going to make Triple H look ridiculously strong here as usual, but I'd still have Orton go over. I'd have Triple H win the first fall, the regular match. Then in the 2 no DQ falls, I'd have Orton win by cheating from Legacy or something like that. Yeah, I think that all works. Okay. So there are 4 matches between the Bash and Night of Champions, and we all know that the television wrestling shows are just build-ups to pay-per-views, so these are the 4 matches that I would be trying to get at the Night of Champions pay-per-view. It would be Maurice versus Mickie James for the Divas title, Kofi Kingston versus The Miz for the US title, a 4-way tag feud for the tag titles between the Hart Dynasty, the Colones, Legacy, the champions, and Kendrick and his mystery partner that I'll come to later, and Triple H, Cena, Orton. Yes, we've seen it before, but I've got a twist, don't worry. Okay, first of all, Maurice Mickie James. I don't have to do much here. This is already basically done for me over the last few months. what I'd do as finishing touches, I'd make Beth Phoenix look strong again because, you know, she's one of Raw's only talented divas, so I'd make her look strong. I'd have Beth Phoenix defeat Kelly. I'd then have Beth Phoenix take on Mickie James in a number one contendership match, and I would have I'd have Maurice interfere, trying to make sure Mickie James doesn't win the match, but accidentally interfering on behalf of Mickie James, so Mickie James gets a cheap victory over Beth Phoenix, and then the next night I'd have Beth Phoenix destroy Maurice on Raw, and maybe Mickie James on commentary, all that stuff, the usual stuff, that's all sorted anyway, done. 4-way tag feud, this is how I do this. What I do is I'd have Legacy come out either the first Raw after the Bash or the second Raw after the Bash and cut a promo on their own without Orton, saying, you know, we're not just Orton's lackeys, you know, really expressing their personality here. Hopefully they have some, otherwise this bit is fucked, but that's what we're going for, and talking about their dads, talking about how their dads are the greatest ever, talking about how they've got the greatest lineage in WWE history, which brings out the Hart Dynasty. Then Natalya cuts a promo saying, actually, we've got the greatest lineage in WWE history. You know, Bret Hart mentored him, Davey Boy Smith, his father, etc., etc. Which would bring out the Colones, who would say, actually, a lot of people forget, but we've got a pretty famous dad too. You know, he was a damn good wrestler, etc., etc. Which brings out the Brian Kendrick, who says, listen, if you have to have a famous dad to be part of this tag team feud, then I might just have found the perfect partner. And he introduces Joe Hennig, Kurt Hennig's son, who apparently they're considering putting with the Brian Kendrick. I think that'd be great. I think that would work really well in this feud idea I've got going. So they've all got famous fathers, that's the link. And over the next few weeks you make the Brian Kendrick and Joe Hennig look really good. And you'd have the usual tag team stuff, you know, singles matches, posing people from different teams against each other, and, you know, interference in tag matches, all that sort of stuff. Done. That could be good. Next, The Miz versus Kofi Kingston for the US title. This is the most complicated one. Okay, The Miz comes out after the Bash and cuts a promo where he thanks John Cena. He says, Cena helped me to put on the match of my life. He helped me to show people that I am as good as I said I was. I couldn't beat Cena on the day, but I will beat Cena one day. But I really respect John Cena, and rather than trying to imitate him to mock him, I'm now going to try and imitate him to emulate his success. I'm going to pay my dues like he did, and I'm going to try and win the US Championship. In other words, Miz is cutting a face promo. But the whole idea behind this angle is that the fans always suspect the Miz is heel, and the other wrestlers always suspect the Miz is heel, especially Cena, who doesn't buy it for the first few weeks, but slowly, you know, the Miz grows on him. The Miz perhaps saves him from an attack by Legacy or something like that, and then maybe the Miz tags with him, and Cena grows to trust him, and other wrestlers grow to trust him, and finally the fans grow to trust him, and just as that happens, we'll turn him heel, but I'll come to that much later. So yes, Miz Kofi Kingston. The other good thing about this is the Miz gets to have some practice in the ring, which he's really not had. So I'd have him actually make himself number one contender by beating everyone else. So I'd have him beat Chavo Guerrero the first week, William Regal the second week, and then Matt Hardy in a number one contendership match on the third week. So he faces Kofi Kingston at Night of Champions. So that's how I do that. Okay, turn over to part 2.